We're going to begin with, shortly, Lucas Cameron of Seven Trumpets Prepper. But after that, Mike and Jenny of Candid Truth. And then, after lunch, Josh Keith, founder of Brothers. Followed by Brother Theo. And then, at 5 p.m., you don't want to miss it, Bryson Gray is going to be performing, and I'm a big fan, and he's an excellent showman, so you guys definitely want to be here for that, so don't miss it. Guys, who enjoyed our first day of TrutherCon? Yeah? Well, we are very, very grateful that you guys have joined us here. Hopefully you can see our heart behind why we're bringing this event together. You see, sometimes it's creating the environment to spark the conversation that you can't find in a YouTube video that brings value to the Truther community. And that's what we're hoping to do with TrutherCon. Now, last night we had a fantastic panel of all of our speakers. How did you guys like the Truther tank? Yeah, that was fun. Now we have a lot of big plans for that in the future. Now, just a couple quick announcements. Don't forget, there's several other really awesome raffles. We're giving away a ton of cool stuff for $1. Make sure to check in at that before, it's some cool prizes up for grabs. Also, I want to give a shout out to all of our vendors over here. Please, yes, support what you love. You know, these people have come all the way out here and are supporting TrutherCon, so let's support them. Please show them your attention and business. All right. Well, I am very pleased to welcome onto the stage a brother who we have done many interviews with over the years. It's actually here at this conference we've got to first interact in person. You know, give him that big old Truther Connection hug. Hey, man. And it is Lucas Cameron from Seven Trumpets Prepper. Please welcome him.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'll tell you what, yesterday was a great day. I really enjoyed the presentations. When Jeremiah and Jake first talked to me about this, I think it was one night after we streamed together, they were like, hey, we're going to do this TrutherCon. I think we're going to put something together. Do you want to come speak at it? After they had invited me, I sat on this for months. My brain just brainstorming, and it's like, if I had just like an hour to speak to people and tell them the most important thing that I could possibly tell them in my 15 years of doing ministry, what would that be that is timely to today? And we're going to talk about the days of Noah 2.0. And I'll get to that in just a minute, but the most imperative thing, obviously, is I always try to share with everyone in the world anymore, is that, to fear the Most High, keep His commands, His statutes, judgments, His new moon days, Sabbaths, and His appointed feasts throughout the year. Have faith in the Messiah. And, that is the absolute most imperative things, of course, we can be doing in the last days. But nevertheless, we live in a time where that there's so many different doctrines. There's the rapture doctrine. There is the Satan's little season doctrine. There's so many different things swirling around in the blender. And everyone's like, what is really going on around here? And it's so crystal clear when you listen to Messiah, because he laid out a template based upon Noah's day. All we have to do is reverse engineer that. And the other thing I would say to that is that, I was born in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s, and, we used to have the super malls you'd go to. And you'd walk in there, that place was just like a labyrinth. And there was this sign on the kiosk, though, like I was a little kid, so I was like, where's the arcade at? Mom, Dad just let you run free, right? We were living in a different world then. And I look at the thing that said, you are here. That is the intent today to drop a pin. You are here on the time, okay? So, with that said, we're going to begin the days of Noah 2.0. Now, The reason that it's so important that we know this is because final events, the seven trumpets of Revelation, the whole premise of why that I've done YouTube ministry for years on YouTube, Seven Trumpets Prepper, is because the most catastrophic events that have ever taken place in the history of humanity since creation is about to unfold. It's, Scripture talks about a time upon the earth that never has been, nor never will be again. So that's pretty heavy. So, knowing these things and knowing what is ahead of us, the importance of knowing the days of Noah is that whenever I build a puzzle, OCD in me, I have to have all the border built. And then I start plugging in the pieces, and then I start going in the colors. And it's just the way I've always done things. So, the Scripture thankfully gives us the border to know exactly where we're at. Then we don't have to get swayed with men's doctrines, because honestly, I think the rapture's great, except it's not legit. I think Satan's little season is epic, because then I don't have to do all this prepping, like the hundreds of thousands of dollars and all the years I dedicated to working in emergency service work, volunteering with FEMA, to working on my own farm, to my community. Like, nobody has to do anything. Just keep the commandments and wait for the curtain to drop immediately. But it don't work like that. Like, there's immense suffering and struggle to come. So, Messiah was very clear. He said, as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. That's Matthew 24 and 37. So, whenever you were in Sunday school, of course, I had a journey leaving Babylon. I went to Sunday church, Seventh-day Adventist church, Seventh-day Baptist. It was all over the place, and then finally got to the truth. Is you said in Sunday school, and there's this quick blaze over. So there was this creation, there was man, then there was fallen angels, then there was like giants and some weird Lord of the Rings stuff kind of thing going on. And then all of a sudden, then it was like, we're done with this, there's a flood, Noah's a good guy, and we keep it moving. Did anybody else get an explanation a little different to that? Because that was pretty much the glaze over I got as a child. But actually, there is a lot of backstory that went on in Noah's day, and it's actually replaying an exponential growth right now. So, these are the 10 points that I want you to think about, because we're going to go like on a drive today, and we're going to come to the crossroads, and then we're going to make a left in the neighborhood and come back through and go through some stuff again, and you're just going to see this interweaving of the dots. The first thing is widespread sin and violence, absolute lawlessness. If you look at the world today, when you read the Scripture and look at Sodom and Gomorrah, actually, you do a deep dive, look at Yeshar, you look in the 66 books, you just look at all the contextual information you can get about Sodom and Gomorrah. They did terrible things to people. Like, they were unkind to the stranger. They did lewd acts that I just rather even not talk about. Y'all know what I'm saying. There was just lots of terrible things that they done. But in Noah's day was a massive template of the same thing. So you had that. You had normalcy in the midst of corruption. It blows my mind today that you go out in the street, and I have never seen the United States of America more politically, religiously, and just socially divided than ever before. Matter of fact, the world's an extremely wicked place. Like, when I raised my son, it was one thing, but raising my two daughters right now, like, wherever they are, my eyes are like a laser on them, because I'm worried about the world. It's just crazy. So, you have that going on. And then you have spiritual wickedness in high places. And you got to understand that, I've traveled across the world, and you see all these cultures, and it's always the same thing. It's pyramids, and it's dragons, and it's sacrificial offerings, and just all this crazy stuff. And it's like you can see the fallen angels and Satan's footprint everywhere, because they wanted to be deified and worshiped just like the Most High. And so you see all this spiritual wickedness, and this is how all these pantheon of false deities and all this stuff come about. Was from the very beginning, fallen angels. And then you see technology and science. You see all of this metallurgy and changing of human DNA and all this stuff brought down by the fallen angels and the messengers. You see a population explosion. Now this one's really important to me. I'm a numbers guy. And whenever you think about days, many people say, well, maybe hundreds of thousands of people were alive, or millions of people. Actually, the studies that have been conducted, there might have been trillions of people. Okay, I just want to hammer that one out. And we'll get to that in a minute. DNA manipulation, intermingling of DNA, and I'm talking about like with the messengers. I'm talking about like scientific, intentional creating of monsters. We'll get into that in a minute. Sexual perversion took place, and what I mean by that is that another type of entity intermingled with another entity, creating a different entity. Okay? So we have that going on, and we have that happening today by different means. And of course we had giants. And lastly, we have mixing of the animal kingdom monsters, which is cryptids and chimeras and whatever you want to call them. And lastly, there was a prophetic warning that one day it was going to get ugly, and the rain was going to come, there was going to be a flood, and it was game over. And the day the water started dripping, people got the memo then. The problem is, the same situation is going to happen today, is that D-Day +1, when a third of the stars fall out of the heaven, whether you're driving to work, or you're sitting at the coffee shop, or you're watching a sitcom on TV, and you look out the window, and it's just, whoop, whoop, whoop. There's no turning back at that point. It is done begun. So we need to be prepared against that. So we had that warning too. And so as we begin into this, and Elohim looked up on the earth and saw that it was corrupt, for all living creatures on the earth had corrupted their ways. That's Genesis 6 and 12. So today, we see so much complacency, we see so much of people just going about their business, that worldslastchance.com actually made the best expose and point about it, is that they said that many people are content to be born, live, work, and die in this construct, right? And that essentially is what we're seeing today, and the normalcy of it. And they were oblivious until the flood came and swept them all away. So will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. I compared various different scripture translations, and the reason that I wanted to make sure and share that one is because I found, in my personal opinion, that that was the most depth and clearest of the word when you see oblivious, because that's literally the state that most people are in today. And they took as wives whomever they chose. That's Genesis 6 and 2. And just a couple more scriptures. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and afterwards as well, when the sons of Elohim had relations with the daughters of men. And they bore them children who became the mighty men of old, men of renown, Genesis 6 and 4. So it's hard sometimes to compress this down, that like a lot of these things took place in ancient times, because you know, a lot of people live in the here and now. If it ain't right in front of them, 3 feet in front of them, then it's not really a reality to them. And then the more you tamper with his Torah, then you know you can slowly get this out of the forefront of people's minds. And it's amazing how much in these last 2 decades that there's been a massive effort that whenever giants are found, or LiDAR scans, or things like that, that there's always hush-hush about giants. It's just like taboo. Like, we find some like crazy Jurassic Park-looking dinosaur that I really just think a lot of that's fake, but that's another story. You know, that gets purported, but nobody wants to talk about the giants. The problem is, and sorry, I was checking this presentation the other night, and this is one of the few slides that got blurry because of the size, but you see all these people, and I think this was like a collage they took of it and replicated so many times. And the reason I say that is this is an example of just, if you stacked multitudes and multitudes of people together in an open area, just how many millions and billions of people that the world could hold. Like they talk about it often, how that different states in the U.S., I think it is, could hold like almost the mass of the world that's alive right now. Like if you put them all in one place, like they're always talking about overpopulation, but like it's incredible how vast this geostationary flat earth that we live on is. So when I got to looking into that, I always try to look at the secular side, try to look at the religious side of it, and there was this Our World in Data article put together, how has world population growth changed over time. And when you look at it from by the way, I know I'm clicking through this fast. There's a lot of slides. If anybody wants a copy of this, you can email me at the number 7trumpetsprepper@gmail.com. I'll gladly send you a copy of this, okay? If you look at this, you can see right here how that from the 1800s to now, you have an exponential that we're going to be like over 10 billion people. I would actually went along with that graph until the events that took place in 2019 to 2024 have drastically adjusted the population in this world. I've lost a lot of friends due to one singular choice. If y'all have been around during that time, you know what happened. Knowing that, though, the other option is to look at it from a religious standpoint in ancient times, using the math from secular today. And this guy, Bible science guy, if you want to check it out, one of the great points they made, and I don't really go along with it because my mind can't fathom it, but he even tried to be conservative with it, is when you take all the exponentials that was in that article, you take the fact that we only live, most people live, I think the average man in the United States lives to about 72. If you take living to like almost 1,000 years in ancient times, keep in mind that the world was pressurized, the atmosphere was a lot better, we didn't have chemtrails, didn't have red dye 40 in your food, you know, we can just keep going and going and going. The whole world was a much brighter, beautiful place, right? And you lived longer. If you had sons and daughters, and they had sons and daughters, and you exponential that by the growth rate, they're talking that there could have been trillions of people alive on earth at that time. Now the point that's so important to be made of that is that after the flood, after the shortening of man's lifespan, and then up to today, there has not been that amount of people on the earth again until now. And so that's important because it's as of the days of Noah. Again, there's an exponential amount of people up on the earth, and it took a long time to replenish that, with the situation being a lot different post-flood. Now, the book of Enoch talks about, and Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, breastplates, and reveal to them the metals of the earth and how to work with them, as well as how to make bracelets, ornaments, and the use of antimony, beautifying the eyelids, along with all kinds of precious stones and various dyes. Widespread wickedness arose, and they engaged in fornication, were led astray, and corrupted all their ways. These messengers that come down, it was literally like, you know, when I get on YouTube and I need to know, I'm not an automotive guy. Like, if you need your house wired, I'm a great electrician. I'm not an automotive guy. I break a sweat just looking at changing something out. And I'll go on YouTube and I'm like, how do I do this? And 20 minutes later, I'm out there and man, we've got AutoZone parts and we knocked it out. I never would have done it though, had I not known and seen somebody do it. So these angels are over here and they're like, look, guys, you just throw some metal in here and you heat that up and boom, there's a sword. Now you can go kill your neighbor. I mean, like, they were all about teaching how to corrupt everybody. And it's all recorded. So, knowing this, like, people just think, oh man, these people are like Neanderthals, and like, he just didn't know nothing. And it's like, this is like, I think the one that they got the idea for the Etherium for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny thing from. You know, there's a lot, somebody shared the other day, I believe it was Mr. Weiss on the clock in Prague that is so in tune. Like, there was so many celestial tracking objects they had back in the day. You know, Far Eastern culture, you know, Mesopotamian, Greek. There was all sorts of ether tech, is what I call it. You know, the Greeks had it as the fifth element until modern science. I can't think of the two people's name it's after, but after they done that experiment, they removed aether as a potential fifth element. But I believe aether is actually the exponential that explains so many things, is the gap on the flat earth for a lot of the phenomenons and things that we can't put our finger right on. It is a part of our world. I mean, Nikola Tesla, I've got some of that from Nikola Tesla in a minute, but I mean, used to, they would put certain elements together inside of like brass, and then it would create an electronic anode cathode to power a vehicle down the road. I mean, that made the news many years ago. Like, there's a lot of old world tech that we just don't know of, but it existed all the way back pre-flood. And not to get into Buddhism, because we don't have that here on my watch, but the type of weapons that were used back in the day, especially with high energy output, there's lots of records of it. And the reason I want to pause for a second and look at this again is because that's all you ever get shown when you talk about Noah's flood. Is just seeing a flood, a boat, and it's over. And there is just so much that we're not being told. This is from Egypt. I used to have a copy of this in my office. There's a helicopter, looks like to be a tank, a dirigible or a blimp. I mean, you can see a lot of ancient technology. Vimanas were talked about. They were called flying cities. And, you know, today, if you, I don't want to go too conspiracy on you here, but, you know, definitely make sure to paint your roof blue, okay? You know, because direct energy weapons apparently don't burn down blue roofs. So we've seen that in Hawaii and now in California. But, you know, back in the day, people's like, well, the Satan's whole season commenced because Messiah come back and he burned everything down and he, you know, judgments came, and it's like, you also might have had a direct energy weapon too. So, like, this is explaining a lot of the weapons and things that people had back in the day. The matrix, for example. I mean, to me, that looks like a nuclear blast or a direct energy weapon. There's a lot of explanation for a lot of the old world stuff that happened by looking at the old world itself. And it helps keep us on a clear, concise timeline headed toward the coming and return of Messiah. Tartaria. I call this the Tartaria effect. Now, last night, if friends were listening to me, whenever they asked the questions, and somebody said Israel, and I said terrorist state. I stand behind that. Because the people there today are not the ancient people of the book. People would disagree with that, and that's okay. I know I don't live there as a neighbor, but President Nasser, I believe it was, of Egypt at the time said that you left black and you came back white. I cannot accept you. So I'm not trying to get into what people call racism or anything like that, but what I'm saying is that there was a people and a time and a place and a culture, and those people that currently occupy that territory would be what I would say make up the synagogue of Satan. But that I would call the Tartaria effect in our modern time, because Tartaria, for example, was a kingdom. Matter of fact, this is a book from Gatlinburg, Tennessee, not too far up the road from me, and it's about the history of the divisions of the kingdoms of the world. And Tartaria is plainly marked off in that book, just like Flat Earth used to be in encyclopedias and in Tartaria, ancient kingdoms. And matter of fact, there's a big into archaeology, like a modern day Indiana Jones kind of guy. And where Tartary was, it occupies the territory of like where the Great Wall of China is. And if you actually go out to the broken ramparts of it, the shooting protection is actually turned toward China. But if you go on the tour in China, you'll see on the ramparts it's got protection on both sides of the wall, but that's not the case. When you actually go out away from the cities and you go way out in the middle of nowhere, there's no protection on Tartary's side, or modern day, be up toward Russia, right? It's all toward China. So there's that too. So people call it the Great Wall of Tartary. All right, so when you consider upon a lot of the things I've just shared, many people feel that Messiah's return was at 70 AD. People will cite some people's names or certain texts and things like that. I'm not going to cover that right now. But the thing is when you look at a lot of the destruction of ancient civilizations, you can see like this is off the coast of Japan. It's still under the water today. There's still civilizations that once existed in Noah's day that's still left underwater today from the prior destruction. And you can compare notes with a lot of these things. The steps, the pyramid structures, it's just so consistent. Like, one thing I like about Satan is he's consistent. Because like I can always trace his hand in the evil that's done and the copies. So when you look at this, like this is Shilaga, which people know today as Chicago. You can see that this lake area here is actually still there today. And people will say that a lot of these structures were plaster and wood. I've worked in construction my whole life, and I'll tell you that the boys are crushing it with wood and plaster. We need to build a house with wood and plaster. If you look, though, at the detail of some of these places, and how tiny the people are, and how massive the doors are, and you'll find that throughout the world, these massive doors that just go up to the heavens. And, I'm just like 5'11". I don't need a big old door. 72-inch door, standard Home Depot door will get me through just fine. But all these places have these massive doors. Now, the reason I'm making this assertion of this is because a lot of the mud flood theories and things like that, whenever the recent disaster happened with the flooding in western North Carolina, it come right up over to the town where I live. And my neighbors and stuff, you look at the places and there's their house, right? And then there's this huge mud up beside it, this washout, right? What do you think happens when a worldwide flood happens? You've got fossils up on top of mountaintops, you've got buildings inundated with massive amounts of material, and then what happens? Well, time goes by, and then you find these structures that existed in like the Nephilim and Giants days, and then you repurpose them. Well, that's what probably happened with a lot of this that people will say was the millennial kingdom. I wouldn't assert that was the millennial kingdom at all. Furthermore, as I said last night, if you went outside I walked next door, had a really nice night's rest. I noticed that the sky was still present, the stars were still in the heavens, and the firmament dome hadn't been removed yet, so we're still good. Okay? So, as we move forward, we see that these places had electricity. Once again, I want you to look at how small people are and how big the doorways and entranceways are. Like this is massive. Okay, like if I ran my Milwaukee tape measure on that, that's probably like a 40, 50 foot opening. It's massive. You could probably take a D8 Caterpillar through this opening here. I'm very content. You could definitely roll some equipment through there. But anyway, that was the world that it used to exist. And the reason that this had to be replaced is because it is an absolute monument to the fact that the world before did exist. The fallen angels' technology was among us. Like, it had to be removed for all these false doctrines, Big Bang Theory, evolution, all this stuff. It had to be removed. And, of course, this is out in Nashville, out from my house. You can see Grecian, Egyptian, all sorts of different architecture there. And it's crazy that what they purport that people visited, the amount of people visiting there is like so far beyond what the actual population was. There's a lot of sketchy stuff whenever you really talk about the ancient world and its population, etc. But Nikola Tesla, made this comment right here about the ether. And you got to understand that the people, just as far back as 100 years ago, knew a lot more about how to harness the world that we live in than we do now. And this has been an intentional dumbing down. Intentional. All right? So there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, and nothing hidden that will not be made known. Luke 12:2. So when it comes to giants in modern days, what's so important to me is that whenever it's found, they go the extra mile away to cover it up. And I look at this as an old world building too. Smithsonian Institute is notorious for their expeditions and things to cover up giants. If you want to check out a book, Richard J. Dewhurst, The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America, from Cahokian Indian mounds to you name it across the U.S., lots of cover-up of giants. And this guy right here is just like an everyday dude like me. Family, working guy, going about his life. One day, he's driving down the road and he sees a large cryptid on the side of the mountain, right? Like a giant. And Andrew Dawson makes this TikTok, and I got to say, it was wild. Thankfully, it was before the age of AI, so we can rule that out. So he goes on to investigate it. He starts being harassed, and then after he's harassed, he makes another video. He's like, you know what, guys, I didn't really see what I saw. And you can see that it ain't legit, felt from the heart like the other videos were. And then after that, he goes on again and he says, you know what, I actually did see that. I want to recant on what I said. It did all happen. I wasn't faking. And after that, I found him later in the obituary. And he paid for that with his life. And so I always pay attention to how things fall forward, because anytime that somebody says something like that bold, and then the next thing you know, they're 6 feet in the dirt, everything he said is as legit to me as ever at that point. And this is modern times, so I just want you to understand that, the things that was seen in the ancient world, just because you don't see it on the 5 o'clock news, doesn't mean that it still isn't available today. Okay? And this man paid for his life with it. I'm sure the videos aren't still on TikTok, but I'm sure somebody out there in the social media world has downloaded and recorded it. Okay, so moving forward, book of Yasher, chapter 4. And all the days that Hanok lived upon earth were 365 years. After that, they took Methuselah his son and anointed him, caused him to reign the place. So things that went on in that time, and it says every man made unto himself a deity, an Elohim, and they robbed and plundered every man his neighbor as well as his relative, and they corrupted the earth, and the earth was filled with violence. And their judges and rulers went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force from their husbands, according to their choice. And the sons of men in those days took from the cattle of the earth, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the air, and taught the mixture of animals of one species with the other, in order therewith to provoke the Most High. And Elohim saw that the whole earth, and it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its ways upon the earth, men and all animals. And Yahuwah said, I will blot out man that I created from the face of the earth, yea, from man to the birds of the air, together with cattle and beasts that are in the field, for I repent that I made them. Very important to understand there, because we're in the age of DNA manipulation. Now, I know when I was a kid, it was Dolly the sheep, right? Now we're doing some crazy wild stuff. Like if you haven't seen all that went on in the past 5 years, then you've definitely been asleep at the wheel. There's a lot of sketchy stuff going on, and I don't want to say anything that would get content removed. So you know what I'm talking about. And we got to learn to draw a line between what was manipulated and what was real, because like when you look at scripture and take a look at Behemoth, which I made just as I made you, it eats grass and all, like the ox. See its powerful loins and the muscles of its belly. Its tail is as strong as the cedar. The sinews of its thighs are knit tightly together. That's Job 40, 15 through 17. This is a 13th century painting of going to war, and you can see what looks like people would label a brachiosaurus. People say, well, no, that was a camel. But I've been around camels, and I would not relate that to a camel. But we need to find a defining line where that there is a world where different things lived that we don't see today, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't existent. But we also need to know that there was things that wasn't supposed to exist that do exist. And like, for example, today, literally these things like that one, I think I took a screen cap of that because that one is at a zoo for viewing. And I'm 99% sure this image is AI generated. But there is some serious research going on in Asia about dragons and things like that. Like there's a lot of conversations about bringing back all sorts of wild stuff. I mean, they're really intent on doing it. And this, you need to understand, in just the past decade, has really been unlocked. Like this next slide right here, I just want you to understand, used to when I was a kid and I watched Terminator, I was like, man, this is great. I was like, this is really cool. They won in the end. And I'm like, nowadays I'm looking at it and I'm like, we literally got robots walking on the street that at the push of a button, they could do terrible things to us and our families. I'm like, I really hope these people don't get too wild in these labs because I don't want to see Jurassic Park. Okay, I'm just not about that. But we know that there is a lot of things going on in the background. And what finally put the last thing on my bingo card for the days of Noah from then to now is what finally happened in around 2019. Because mRNA and the changing of human DNA has not happened on a grand scale till now. For those that participated in that particular thing, 72.5%, I believe it is, of the entire world population received that. That leaves a very small portion of people that their DNA has not been altered in some way. It's very, very heavy statistics. Mystery Babylon, for your, blurred this one, but for your merchants were the great men of the earth, and by your sorcery, all the nations were deceived. It's Revelation 18. Literally, if you look that up, pharmacy is sorcery. By it, all nations were deceived. Pharmakia. So, what went down just recent was prophesied in Revelation. And it was literally warned by Messiah that what went on the first time in Noah's day would go on again. It doesn't matter how we get there. The end product gets there the same way. Okay? And CE4 Research Group, I forget who it was that shared it, a long time ago. I hate that I can't tell you the show that I watched it on, but anyway, they done a study, and they said that people that were abducted by aliens, when they cried out to Messiah, the experience stopped immediately. Now, last night, whenever they said aliens, and we were passing the mic around, I said final card. And the reason that I say that is if you look at all the cards that's been laid on the table lately, and they played out, this is one of the last ones left. And I fully expect it to play out in the days of Noah that we're living in. And whenever you see this happen, just keep in mind that this is all part of the deception. Because all the way back from when Reagan said it at the United Nations, that we're getting to a point where everyone's starting to think for themselves. And whenever you start looking up and you're like, man, those chemtrails, I ain't about that. Man, this red dye in my kid's food, I'm not about that. I'm not about being taxed to death. I'm not about, all these different things that's going on in our world. People start to have conversations. it's getting to the point where you're going to see people want to rise up and rebel. And I know the leaders of the world know this, because if I dealt in nefarious deeds, I would think just like I'm thinking right now about it, where I'm trying to deconstruct it, they would be trying to construct the thought process how to deal with this. So just be warned for what's coming, the mark of the beast, New World Order system being fully implemented. I live in a little tiny town of like 4,000 souls. I'm driving down the road one day to go do a job, and I look over and there's this pole, and there's a photovoltaic module on top of it, and then there's this like deer cam looking thing. And then I find out it's a facial AI recognition scheme. I'm like, in my tiny town. And then I go to Sevierville, and it's right out front of the entrance to Dollywood theme park. And I keep going down the road, and they're just popping up everywhere. And this infrastructure and all this is being built around us. I'm watching it day by day. So just keep that in mind. But just a couple last scriptures and one last thought to leave with you. Is people were eating and drinking, marrying, being given in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. And then the flood came and destroyed them all. People are going about their business right now. And literally, prophetic events are playing out. I literally have never seen the Mississippi River so dry in my entire life. Me and Akeem, Brother Akeem right there is filming right now. We were driving out here to this the other day, and I look off, and you would literally need to push the barge up to it, take a dozer, pull it up over the bar, sandbar, and then hook another boat to it, take it down the river. I've never seen that. River Euphrates is drying up, and look, I don't care if it's because you say it's hydroelectric power dams being built or whatever. All it says is the River Euphrates will be dry in the last days. And they said, projecting by 2030-ish, that it may be dry. That's very soon. And so, for those that view America as the whole world, got you covered. Mississippi looks pretty rough. And if you still consider the Middle East, and that is the ancient prophetic place of Scripture, well, it's looking pretty sketchy too. All right. So behold, he is coming with clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn because of him. So shall it be. It's Revelation 1:7. The last thought I'll leave with you is I've studied on this for a long time and looked at the mathematics of it. There's two shapes that New Jerusalem could be. It could be a cube, that's usually what's always been purported, or it could be a pyramid. Now, I'm going to say it's a pyramid. Messiah has always been the chief cornerstone, I believe that chief capstone. The mathematical dimensions of it work out just fine. And matter of fact, whenever the firmament dome is removed and that would come down into Earth, the size and dimension of it, like it says that you won't need to worry about the sun. You know, it'll be so beautiful place and bright, you won't need the sun by day, etc. Well, it will be viewable from all around in the world too. I would almost be intrigued that if the multiple firmament domes were removed in the very end, it'd be visible all the way out to the extent of the fullness of the creation. I don't know. I hope I make it and see it. But just for example, for people that's like sci-fi, I mean, you see the Death Star up there, and you see how small in comparison to the megalithic size of New Jerusalem. Just incredible, incredible. And ladies and gentlemen, we're getting to a point where that we're hitting there's a vector. And this impasse is coming where that we're being dumbed down to a point where we don't know what the past, so that we can see what's coming in the future. And the other thing is that I personally think that there will be a massive push to facilitate end-day events before end-day events, so that when, like just for example, if you've seen an fake alien invasion, I mean, like I said, the social media is ablaze about this coming month being the Atlas whatever object coming in. And last month, remember, everybody went wild about the rapture. People sold their homes, quit their jobs, and they woke up the next morning. So, next month, I guess we're going to have alien invasion, according to social media. But I'm just saying, you got to be mindful of what's to come, because if I was Satan, I would make sure that you dealt with that the first time, so that when you did see the Son of Man coming in the clouds, you're like, oh man, I do with this again. And that's exactly what I think the precipice is being set for this. So, in close, I would just tell you, as I said in the beginning, fear the Most High, keep His commands, have faith in His Son, and as always, as I tell everyone on 7 Trump's Record Channel, I hope Most High Yahweh can keep you, make His face shine upon you, show you favor, and give you shalom, my friends. In Yahushua.
Lucas Cameron, everyone. Oh my goodness, that was awesome. Okay, so we have a Q&A. We're going to have a roaming mic for a few minutes here, and we're going to get that ready momentarily. All right, so if you have a question, raise your hand.
We'll put my glasses on so I can see us and talk to you. Make sure to pack everything for this trip, but I did not grab my regular glasses, so I got more glasses.
My question is, okay, so the times of Noah, and the correlations that you pointed out, given other historical points in time where there were other situations where you could argue that a lot of the criteria had been met for the times of Noah, like say lawlessness and sin, or the times of Nero ruling, or up to before Constantine, those sorts of things, what would be the distinctive signs that you would say are different about this time compared to those historical times, to say that this is the time of Noah? Would be maybe the chimeras being created in labs?
That's an excellent question. That's an excellent question, Jim. So what I would say to that, sir, is I've thought on that, right? Because don't get me wrong, I literally would be thrilled if the rapture took place. I'd be thrilled if we're in Satan's little season. I cannot overly state that. Like 7 Trump's prepper to come out and say, hey, I was wrong. Don't worry about planning for the trumpets. It's just about to be over. I'd be thrilled to be the guy to do that. Like my pride level is that level. No problem. But when you look at your question you asked, you look at Nero, you look at 70 AD, you look at all of these different things that's carried out. The problem is that what really got me and why I sat on this presentation for so long is that the life is in the blood. And our blood is precious to the Most High, okay? Like extremely precious. And the world was destroyed the first time through for this corruption. As of just 2019, we finally see that starting to go into massive motion. You needed 2 things for that. You needed that to take place, and you needed a massive world population. As statistics, and I'm just going to go off secular, because from secular after the flood to now, we can just go with that, right? You don't have that massive ramp up of population. But now, today, you do. And that would be my greatest point that I would cleave to, that it is now. I mean, of course, we can look the River Euphrates. A lot of prophetic things taking place too, but that would be the most.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So do you think that as we're accelerating on conferences like this, a lot of this quote-unquote forbidden archaeology will begin to be even more and more exposed, as we see there are whole cities with basically worlds underneath them? Do you think there is a rise in that? Because I see so much acceleration, because stuff that we said 5 years ago didn't interest most people, and now it seems like there's a remnant that really wants it. So what's your opinion as you share these things?
Yes, sir. So I deeply love archaeology, love history, but a lot of the people that are coming to the knowledge of like mud flood, looking into mud flood, Tartaria and stuff like that, old world, I think that it's going to be hard to keep this quiet, because, for example, like some old world buildings, you go out to and it's supposed to be plaster and wood, but you go out to it today and it's integrated with infrastructure that they built around it, and you walk in there and it's granite and marble, like it's solid as a rock, literally, no pun intended. And like that is going to be hard to make a case against. If I was a lawyer, and I'm trying to argue in court of law against you, I don't have a leg to stand on. And the part that further compounds it is like in Chicago today, you look at the Great Lakes, ancient maps, the Great Lakes wasn't even there. And they think that was mined out and then backfilled into the water, and et cetera. But, a lot of this stuff can be left to speculation, to adventure, to look into it. But that World's Fair, the water pool is still there today. The infrastructure is still left from where that was today. So, they even fight so hard to try to do away with talking about even the World's Fairs. So the more that gets suppressed, I think the more that's going to be brought forward. I think the next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a great shift in the people that think that we had a catastrophic event that moved us toward a mud flood and Tartaria and all that being wiped out. They're going to start thinking, you know what? I think this stuff was pre-Diluvian, and then it was repurposed. And it's going to be a further support for the scripture. I think it's going to be great. I think for anybody who tries to fight that later, it's going to blow up their face. And for people that want to reinforce their faith, it's going to be outstanding.
Question here.
So to piggyback off what he was talking about, have you ever done a study on the Hungarian Parliament building and the surrounding areas and the bridge that goes to it? It's all border. It's massive.
You said in Hungary? No, sir. I'm trying to think if it's in Brussels or there's a suspended railway. Yeah, and I mean, like, not only that, but the structures around it was just outstanding. And like, you see, the effort now has just been to completely replace everything. And that's what's so strange to me. Like, I'm a guy that's serious about legacy. Before my dad took his last breath, the next act was I made sure that my posterity after me, my son, received his inheritance, a double portion, just as the scripture encourages, and I made sure everything went to my children. I kind of live like a pauper now. And like, I'm very serious about legacy, and so whenever you look and it's like you're the mayor of a town, you're the president of a country, the last thing I'm gonna do is roll up in town and be like, man, this structure is 3,000 years old. It's beautiful. Hey, bring the wrecking ball. Like, who does that? And I think the reason being, once again, is because it's a compound factor. Electric companies are raising rates every day, right? They don't want free energy, and they used to have that in the old world. Many different ways you can manufacture it. I work in solar and wind. I've done it for decades. And I'm telling you right now, like, I literally know how that you can put a charge controller on the wall, you can take blocking diodes, and you can take capacitors. It makes a triangular configuration, earth, ground, comes down, you can reap that energy off. And people have done it. But now I promise you, manufacture that, you may not wake up tomorrow, okay? There is a lot of technology out there. There's a lot of the old world, and they're just trying so hard to remove it. If we could ever get back to that, you want to talk about peace like a river, man. We could have a great life, but they don't want that.
Yeah, so I'm curious what your take is on the catacombs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm looking at these slides so bright. Yeah.
What your take is on the catacombs and like
In Paris.
all over, man.
All over, yeah. You know, I think, and this is just theory, you know, like I try to always sound doctor, this is Luke only. I think a lot of cultures after the flood, you're walking around and you find all these bodies everywhere. What do you do with it? I mean, like, I would have everybody collect it up, put it away, file 13, we keep moving. I mean, like, that's my only explanation to some of that, really just straight up. I haven't spent a lot of time on that, but that would be, and the reason I say that too is like with Indian mounds, right? Whenever the native tribes or they would extinguish these giant tribes, right? They would put them in mounds, in circles, and they bury them, and they just dispose of them. And so what you find is these mass graves of bones everywhere, especially in the Midwest, things like that. Over here, for example. Like in Chichen Itza, been in Central America multiple times, Chichen Itza. You know, it's crazy the vibe you get there. You can just feel this deep, dark energy there, you know, where people were sacrificed to Satan. And, you know, you see just all this, the ancient worlds, how that they disposed of their dead. Like, I think a lot of that either was from, like I said, post-flood or ritualistic sacrifice. And that would be what I would equate that to. Because, I mean, the Aztecs and Mayans were savage, you know, ritualistic killing.
Hi there.
Yes, ma'am.
So you had a picture up there with the brontosaurus and people riding them, and you also like archaeology. So I would highly recommend just down the road, an hour and a half in Glenrose, Texas.
Can you hold your mic a little closer?
It is just down the road, an hour and a half from here. It's Glenrose, Texas, and they have an ancient evidence museum with all the dinosaurs. They have hyperbaric units where they're creating and simulating, you know, the previous environment that we had.
Yeah.
And it has some really cool fossils, including one. It's the real thing. So I even asked them if that was a replica. I said no, it's the real thing. Where they have a dinosaur print over top of human footprint.
Yeah, I've seen what you're talking about.
Yeah, and human footprint is pretty large. It's, you know, like a foot across and, you know, 18, 20 inches long. So yeah, we all visited. They're thinking it was about, it was only 6,000 years ago. It's not millions. So So based on the evidence that they have there.
Yeah, you know, there's an interesting, one of the most interesting fossils to me was this tree that run through all this layer of strata, and it's supposed to be like the Jurassic period. Yeah, and and you know, it's gonna. I hope that I'm counted worthy to life, and especially if I fall asleep before the end days and the resurrection comes, I really hope I'm counted worthy of the kingdom because I have so many questions. You know, I just have so many questions. I mean, I could spend decades like doing deep diving investigation, but I mean, the biggest thing that I would just try to convey to everybody is that there's a lot of stuff we're going to leave this life not knowing right now. But the most important thing is what we're going to be dealing with in the future, and it's like that close. I mean, it's like at the threshold, and I don't want people tripping over it because it's right there. And so, I mean, like, we've got to try to find a way to weave through a lot of this the best we can right now.
Okay, quick question. I love your Tartaria presentation. All the pictures of like San Francisco being this huge city, empty, completely empty with no people, things like that, and then you come across speculations and things on the orphan trains.
Yes.
What's your opinion on the orphan trains?
Yeah, well, okay. We have cloning today. I mean, there's definitely the potential for cloning in the past. Another thing too is that this is going to sound terribly nefarious. This is not my thoughts, right? But I'm just, if I could clone people and then I had child labor, they're not attached to me biologically and they're disposable. And I know this sounds incredibly cruel, but I'm trying to put my mindset in how the wicked would operate. But yeah, the empty cities too, another thing is that time lapse on pictures in the past would not capture a lot of the movement of the people in the city. Now nowadays our time lapse stuff, you know, like if I'm on a golf course and I'm wanting to get the golf course and my son walks like right out in the middle of time lapse and there's this blur of this person, you know, going with it. Time lapse stuff is kind of weird, and I'm not a photographer, electrician, but like, you know, this, a lot of the old world pictures and stuff, you know, there's the ability to capture things then, like now, there's a lot of variance in that too. But now the empty cities too, I think it'd just be like today, if you went and done emergency work, like when that flood just happened, there was a ton of people in action, and then all of a sudden it was a wasteland. And then you just walk up on this place, imagine it'd be like post-flood, you walk up, you're like, man, this was a great Nephilim city. I'm gonna take this house on the left. Bob, you want that one? I mean, like, that could have been a potential too. So, it's one of those things where I can't wait to ask the questions at the end of it all, for sure.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Hi, Chris. I have research on art. I've been doing research on petrification and artificial stone. Paul Cook did a video on a article I sent him about ancient Egyptian artificial stone being like, have you in your research ever encountered humans creating stone, like actually knowing how to make stone from materials, is the question.
I haven't really looked into that, but on the back end of that, you know, a lot of the temples and things that you see today that they're like, man, couldn't have built that, right? But we have like 3D printing tools now, and they use laser technology, and they're like literally cutting designs into stone and all this stuff. Like I've seen the back end of that, where that they're really starting to get that dialed in, but I've not seen how that like they've made some. But I would I'll go out on a limb and just say this is that, you know, a lot of things that we see today, I believe, are petrified giants too. You know, like I definitely believe that. You go to and you see certain rock formations and things like that, and you see the facial structure, the bone structure. I mean, it just seems so obvious. And petrified creatures and stuff too, much larger, because obviously the atmospheric conditions in the world was a lot different place then too.
Yeah, appreciate the presentation. I think I'm in full agreement with everything you presented. So I would ask on Revelation and the timeline, where would you say we're at as far as have seals been opened? Are we there yet? And what would be your perspective on that?
Well,
where we're at?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
Oh,
off.
you're good.
I will never be a date setter guy. Now, what I will stand firmly behind is when Messiah returns, I expect it in the fall feast because he fulfilled the spring feast, and I expect him in the fall. You know, the timeline that we're looking at right now, right? If the River Euphrates dries up and we see fallen angels released, we see all these catastrophic things start to pop off. I mean, you know, the 7 trumpets of Revelation could take place in either a short amount of time or a rather lengthy part of time. And I feel like that we're a matter of like a half decade out max. Agenda 2030, you know, the New World Order is going to roll out whatever they're going to do. They're going to do it on the sneak. Because people did want to get with the program the first time during 2019, what went on, and everybody's like, I ain't getting burned again. Well, they're going to provide the crisis, they're going to provide the solution. So, you know, you got that going on, you've got prophetic events going on, and you just look at all this squeezed together. Messiah says that if he didn't come back swiftly, you know, that there'd be no flesh left. You know, there'd be no flesh saved. So I'm looking, and we've got the Terminator bots, and everybody wants to hit the nuclear football too. I mean, there's just so many different variables that's out there. Me personally, I feel like that if we don't see the return of Messiah in the next decade, I will be greatly disappointed. Because I think that the thing that's going to give everybody peace of mind and at the same time great distress is when you wake up one morning and you walk out and a third of the stars are falling out of the firmament heaven. That's D-Day +1. There's no going backwards from there. So that could be an accelerated timeline from that point. That could be an extensive amount of time from that point. But when I know that day finally comes and y'all real and I'm granted the ability to live and see it, I'm just going to start counting from that moment forward. I'm going to be very mindful of, oh, there was a third of the stars dead. Oh, there was a third of the ships in the sea destroyed. You know, the coasts around the world damaged. A third of the sun, moon, and stars blocked out. I mean, it's going to be a lot easier for us at that point to really get, like, we know where to drop a pin right now, but like that timeline is a sliding rule scale. And so I think that as we continue to pay attention to prophecy, it'll become more clear. But I mean, if it don't happen in the next decade, I'll be honestly shocked. I'll tell you how much I believe it will, is that I'm taking out a home equity investment on my farm. It's paid off. I'm just taking every bit of equity out I can. I'm putting rice and beans on the shelf, and whenever it all burns down, they can come have the ashes after the terms expire. So that's where I'm at with that.
All right, everybody, let's get it up for Lucas Cameron, 7 trumpets. Hey, you can tell he lives up to his YouTube name. He is definitely. All right, so we're going to have a 15-minute break, and then we will be right back.